Okay, so now that we know how to assign objects to variables, let's talk about how we can change them. So how do you think we can go about doing that? Well, you might think back to the alarm clock and how those buttons allowed us to change things about it. The time of an alarm, maybe the time that the clock was reading, all sorts of things like the volume. These were interfaces. And with objects inside of Python and Codesters, they all have interfaces. Interface methods and functions that allow us to change things. So let's go ahead here and dive on into Codesters and learn how we can modify these to make some cool things happen. So to do this, let's first start with placing down some of these interfaces. Let's take a look at them. So if we go to actions, you're going to see a bunch of these different ones popping up. We have, wait, say, ask, moving, sprites, drawing, flipping and facing, all sorts of really interesting things you can do. And I'm just going to go to the moving, and I'm just going to drag some of these onto our code. And what I want you to take a look at is how are they similar? What is a common theme across all of these? Well, one, they all have the word sprite at the beginning. And as we learned in the last one, that sprite is kind of the Codester's default for any sprite object. So whenever you see the word sprite, that basically means whatever you named your sprite, put it there. Or if you're creating a sprite for the first time, make sure you name it descriptively. All right, then we have this dot. Now the dot operator is like the equal sign in a sense that it's a special operator that tells the computer, tells Python, the coding language, that you want to go to that object, the sprite object, and ask for an interface method, something that you can change within itself. And in this case, there's a glide to, or a go to, or a move left, and then there's these values. Much like when we were first doing shapes, these values allowed us to change the size and the color. Well, these allow us to change certain aspects of how these interfaces work. So for example, go to -100, -50 would move whatever sprite this was to that position on the XY coordinates inside the sprite stage. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to create a little scene. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make a little scene here. So I'm going to delete these to begin with. The first thing I want to do is I want to set the stage, make it a little bit of a moment. So I'm going to drag my stage setting. There we go. And now I'm going to go to my sprites because I need my sprites. I'm going to go ahead and find Dracula. I'm going to go ahead and assign Dracula here. And once again, I'm going to make sure I give it a really specific name. So I'm going to just call it Dracula and then give that underscore sprite. So I remember it's a sprite and it's Dracula. So that's nice. All right, so we're now going to tell Dracula, okay, what do we want you to do? Well, it's gonna be summer. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's just run it now and see what happens. Okay, Dracula is sitting out in the beach, which we know would not be good for Dracula. Definitely vampires. We know one thing, they don't like sun unless they're part of Twilight. So let's go ahead here and we're going to go ahead and move we're going to say something as our sprite. So we're going to just say, this is the good old fashioned Dracula that doesn't like the sun. So we're going to say, it's too sunny. And how about, it's way too sunny, because it is way too sunny for Dracula to be out on the beach. All right, so let's go ahead here and we're going to go to the next thing. So I've noticed also that Dracula seems to be kind of floating off the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and have him go to. And I'm actually put that before the little speech thing. And I'm going to put him kind of down here. So I'm looking up here. And actually, there's a little cool numbers up here. And wherever your mouse is, that's where you're basically on the XY coordinate. So those little numbers allow us to know that negative 150, 150 might be a good place for him to be. So let's run that. Let's see what happens. Oh, now here's something I made a mistake. I didn't rename my variables, and this will happen. And one thing, when you do hit an error, go ahead here and take a look at it, and it will actually tell you which line it's happening at. So I'm going to have to go in here and I'm going to have to name it, and I noticed that I forgot to name both of these. So don't worry if you make a mistake, just come back. That's one cool thing with code, is it's very forgiving. When you're designing it, try it out. If it's not working, take a look. All right, let's see what happens. Okay. Dracula, oh, once again, little spelling mistake. Gotta watch those. All right, way too sunny. Working out great now. So he's standing on the beach, way too sunny. Sounds to me like Dracula's got to get out there, or else he's no longer going to be with us anymore. So I think we need to make Dracula disappear. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to make Dracula disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and find a specific command that allows me to remove a sprite. This is in the actions. Now this one affects the stage, but it's still using that dot operator. So this is once again an interface, and in this case, there's that sprite word. We want to tell it which sprite we want to have it disappear. So Dracula is going to disappear here, and let's go ahead and see what happens. Boom! Oh my gosh, he's gone like super fast. Well, that's not really what I wanted. I wanted Dracula to at least say something before he disappears. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add another one that's for the stage, another interface, and this one allows me to make the stage wait for a specific amount of time, in this case seconds. So 2 seconds should be probably long enough. And then I think one other cool thing that would be kind of nice is if it seems like Dracula turned into a bat. So I'm going to go and drag this bat sprite out here, and I'm going to call this bat underscore sprite. And I'm going to make sure that I set it to the exact same position. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the go to position. So let's go ahead here and find that movement. There we go, go to. And I'm going to type in bat sprite, put in the same value. And then one other cool thing I thought would be kind of nice is what if the bat kind of flew away? So I'm going to use the glide to. And the difference between the glide to and the go to is glide to will actually animate across the screen. So I'm going to go ahead here and do that. So let's go ahead here and set it to some value that's well outside the screen. I'm going to do it positively so it kind of crosses the screen. And now let's see what happens. So if my code's right, it will run. If not, we'll take a closer look. And oh, made a little mistake. Once again, and there we go. So now we go, and up, there he goes, flying off. So this is an example of what you can do with changing interfaces. We're able to change and animate these sprites by using their interfaces. So check it out. Please check out the understanding challenge below. Make your own animated scene. I love to see kind of how much you could add. You can do way more than this. You could make sprites appear, disappear. You could make stages change. You could have people walk from one place to another. There's all sorts of things you can do. So I really encourage you to try out some of these things. Have a lot of imagination with them. But this is where we're starting to get into the fun stuff. So in the next activity, or actually in the next module, we will be getting into making our own objects. So don't forget the quiz at the end of this one to also firm up your understanding, but we're gonna be diving into that next.